welcome to Living Hope Church Online. What a beautiful and sunny few days that we have had. I really hope that you've managed to get out and enjoy some of this amazing sunshine. Nick, one of our leaders, she's going to be bringing a message for us today, and it's called Come Out of Your Corner.
Yeah, can't wait for that. So just a reminder, if you're watching this premiere service on 10:30 a.m, YouTube or Facebook, well, you can join us straight after the service for 30 minutes on Zoom. Now, all the account details that you need are on screen now, and if you'd like to join us, then you will be more than welcome.
Fantastic. Now, as we've seen this week, spring is on the way. And I don't know if you've spotted the small flowers already springing up from the ground, but this reminds me of the Bible verse from Isaiah 43 that says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" You know, this verse is saying that God is doing a new thing, that it's springing up a little bit like those flowers. But do we see it?
Oh, wow. Now, following the government announcements this week, we've got some new things. We've got some positive news about more and more people getting vaccinated, and of course the schools reopening too. And I wonder, how does that make you feel? Perhaps excited, apprehensive, optimistic, relieved? I think for me it's probably all those things together. But I'm excited too. I'm excited about the new stuff that God is doing all around us at this time. And I think the key part of that verse from Isaiah 43 that Lisa mentioned is the question, do we see it? Do we perceive it? So, I really challenge us. Let's look for the new things that God is doing right now.
Yeah, that's so good, Dan. So before we hear Nick's message today, let's worship God, who is doing a new thing, not just in our world, but also in our lives too.
All this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come up from this ground at all? You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. All
Hi everyone, it's lovely to be with you this morning, and I just want to say I'm standing up a corner right now, and I want to ask the question, is there anything that is keeping you up a corner today? You see, God has got so much more for you than standing up a corner, and the problem with a corner is you are very limited. There is nowhere to go. There isn't much room for manoeuvre. So it got me thinking about corners. Why do I ever choose to be up a corner? Now, it can be physically up a corner, or metaphorically speaking, I can put my mindset into a corner. You see, for me, a corner can be a little bit of a safe place, a place where you can hide, be a little bit inconspicuous. Now, anybody who knows me will know that I hate going to meetings late, and I often do arrive late, and I don't know why, because I hate it. But if I can, I will go early, and I will try to choose the seat that I am going to sit on. And 9 times out of 10, it will be fairly near the back, and it will be up the corner, out the way, so I can remain inconspicuous. And some of you may associate with that because you may feel the same. Like, please don't ask me any questions, just leave me. I'm here to listen. Pretend you haven't seen me. Other times, I tend to think that I'm up the corner, maybe because I feel like I'm a little bit useless, you know. I don't want to bother anybody too much. If ever you've had a corner in a house like I'm standing in now, you often think, what do I do with that corner, that little bit of a dead space? Do I put a lamp? Do I put a pot plant? What do I do with it? And if ever you've taken clothes to a charity shop, often they will say to you, just put them up the corner, we'll sort them out later. Put the clothes up the corner, out the way. If you associate with either of those things today, that you feel, leave me up the corner, I want to be inconspicuous, or leave me up the corner because I'm feeling a little bit useless, the good news is God's saying to you today, I want you to come out of your corner. You see, God has got so much more for us to do than standing where we are. And it says in the Bible that He's called us to have an abundant life. John 10 verse 10 says, I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. And you might be saying, Nick, I don't feel like I'm living an abundant life at the moment while we're on lockdown. The thing is, God has got a better life for you. He has got so much more that He has in store, that He wants to give you. One of my favourite films that I like to watch is Dirty Dancing with Patrick Swayze. And some of you will know the film really well, where the main characters are Johnny and Baby. And he comes past Baby, who is sitting with her family, and he has taught Baby to dance. They are not very happy about the fact she's dancing. So as he walks past, he takes her by the hand and he says those well-coined phrase, nobody puts Baby in the corner, and he leads her to the dance floor where they do that amazing dance. I've had the time of my life. You know, the one where he holds her in the air, and all of us want to do it, and I would love to do it, but I think I might be a little bit too heavy now. But yeah, that great dance. Well, that phrase we use in our family, and everybody has got these phrases. So if we've had a bit of a day where we feel a bit downtrodden, a bit upset, we will say to each other, nobody puts Baby in the corner. Well, the good news is God says to you today, I don't put you in the corner either. It's time for you to step out, take those steps forward, because I've got better things planned. And all through the Bible, you know, people can associate with how we're feeling. You know, you might feel like I'm stuck up a corner today and I want to come out of my corner because there is no room for growth. It is a dead space. And if we go right back to the beginning of the Bible and we look at Adam and Eve, back in chapter 3 in Genesis, they were very similar to how I have been feeling, because Adam and Eve take the fruit from the tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge, and straight away they know that they are naked. So what do? They go and get fig leaves, sew them together, and they cover themselves. Now, it was customary then that God would walk in the Garden of Eden at night with Adam and Eve, because he got this perfect relationship with them. And on this particular night, they are hiding themselves, if you like, for want of a better expression, up a corner, because they are ashamed, they're naked, they know they're naked, they're embarrassed, and they feel exposed. And God calls them and says, Adam, Eve, where are you? Now, of course, God knows they're in hiding, but he wants to see what their reaction is. And they come out of hiding, and he has to deal with the sin. He has to deal with the disobedience. And the good thing is from that moment on, God had got a redemptive plan to bring us back into that perfect relationship with him. And that's Jesus, who died once and for all. So whatever we do, we can be reconciled to God just as long as we're sorry and we want that perfect relationship with God. So after God has dealt with that, the next thing he does is he clothes Adam and Eve. Now, there's a lot of theological debate as to why God would clothe Adam and Eve. But the one thing I do know is he clothed them not for God's benefit, but for their benefit. And there is something wonderful about being clothed, isn't there? And I remember back to my teenage days when you would go on a date and maybe you'd be a bit cold, or you pretend to be cold and you do a little bit of this, hoping that your boyfriend would put his jacket around your shoulders. And when he did, you would feel like $1 million. And I've gone out with quite a few rockers in my time. Believe it or not, I was a bit of a rock chick in my day, and they used to wrap these awful smelly leather jackets wrapped in patchouli oil around my shoulders, and I loved it because I felt great. But the thing is, God wants to clothe us in far more than that. It says in the Bible, Isaiah 61 verse 10, it says, "For he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has wrapped me in his robes of righteousness." You are accepted by God today. If you feel a little bit naked and you feel a little bit vulnerable, a bit exposed from whatever you've done, the good news is God chooses to wrap you in his clothes today. He chooses to accept you, if only you will turn to him. I just want to share a little bit of a personal testimony, and I was feeling very naked, ashamed and vulnerable. I'm going back to a period in my life probably about 15-20 years ago, and I actually felt like life was not worth living anymore. I'd actually made that decision. I didn't know whether I wanted to carry on, but in desperation I needed Jesus, and I went and sat in a church that nobody knew me, up the corner, out the way, where I was inconspicuous. Please don't talk to me, just leave me up this corner. And the preacher started to preach, and halfway through he stopped and he said, "I've got a message from God for somebody here." And then he went on to describe my life. Now, nobody knew me and they couldn't have pinpointed that it was me, but what he had to say from God was so niche, it could not have fitted with anybody else's life. It was absolutely word perfect through all the situations that I had gone through. But the good news is, God said, "I see your nakedness and I clothe you in my righteousness today. I want you to leave and go out there because you have got a great life to lead." And wow, how I have thanked God so many times for those words. You know, I've stood by those so many times, but I had to take that step to come to Jesus. Nobody was going to make me. I had to take the courage to go and take that step to Jesus. If you are feeling a little bit like me, that actually I'm a little bit ashamed, I'm feeling a bit naked, then come to God today. Come to Jesus, because he wants to clothe you in his righteousness. Now, throughout the whole Bible, we could pick on a whole heap of people who have felt the same as Adam and Eve, and I've just chosen a couple of them. So I'm going to look at Gideon, and we find Gideon, and he's in the book of Judges. And Gideon was an Israelite, and he lived in a time when the Israelites had done wrong in the eyes of the Lord. They started to worship a lot of false idols, and they built idols everywhere instead of worshipping God. And because of this, there was an evil group called the Midianites, and basically they were allowed to run amok through the Israelite camp. So every time the Israelites had some food or had some livestock, in would come the Midianites and they would steal it, they would plunder and they would take it away. It actually says that Midianites even encamped in the same area of the Israelites. That's how intimidating they were. So we find Gideon in the story, and what he's actually doing is he is trying to make bread, and to do that they used to throw the wheat and the chaff into the air, and the chaff would be lighter and the wind would take the chaff away. So this was always done high up on a mountain where obviously there was more wind. But we find Gideon so scared that he's actually doing this down in the wine press on the threshing floor, which is really low down in the hillside, and he is in hiding for fear of the Midianites and what they are going to do. So we're going to enter the story now where an angel of the Lord appears to Gideon, and this is in Judges chapter 6, and we're picking it up at verse 12. And it says, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us over into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of the Midian's hands. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike the Midianites, leaving none alive." I love this because here is Gideon, and the first thing the angel said to him is, "Mighty warrior." Now, he didn't feel very much like a mighty warrior. He was in hiding and he was scared. And, Gideon made all these excuses, didn't he? Surely not me. I am the weakest of the weakest. I'm the lowest of the low. Surely you've got this wrong. It should be somebody else. You can't really expect me to defeat the Midianites. Me? And God had chose Gideon. Now, Gideon asks for several signs of God to prove that he's got it right. And it's quite funny when you read the different things he asks him, and God's very patient with him and gives him all these signs and wonders. And eventually God says to him, "I want you to go out. The first thing you've got to do is destroy all of the idols." Now, Gideon has had all these signs from God, but he's still scared. So he goes out at night to destroy the idols. And you see, what I want to say here is it's okay to come out of your corner if you're scared. When you've got fear, but you take fear and courage, that's when faith starts to develop. And sometimes God is saying, you take the first step towards me and I will meet you there. Sometimes it takes courage, but God says, come on, out of that corner. You may have got a little bit too comfortable there. You may be a little bit settled. It's safe in the shadows, but I want you to come out the corner because you've got an abundant life and I've got plans for you to do. You are restricted. You cannot do what I've called you to do while you are in the corner. And I just want to share a personal testimony of my husband's. I've had permission to do this about courage. I guess during lockdown, none of us are living the abundant life that we really want to live, and we've had time to reflect, haven't we, about what we want life to be like when we come out of lockdown. And we realise that perhaps life is too short, and people have tried to put relationships right, put things right in their life, get their life in order. And for my husband, he was estranged from his family, and mainly it was my husband's fault, and he had to make those first steps towards reconciliation. And it was his idea, but he was very much in a corner, and he'd said that he wanted to ring them, and every day I'd say, well, are you going to do the call? And there was 5 calls. It wasn't one call, it was 5 different calls. Are you going to do that today? Well, it's a little bit late now, it's 8 o'clock, maybe they're watching telly, I'll do it tomorrow. The next day I come, are you going to do that call today? I'm going to wait till the weekend now, they might be at work and all of this. And eventually he took the courage and he made those calls. And the great news is everything is back to normal. The family has been reconciled, and which is great news for our family. We are absolutely thrilled. But got me thinking, are we making excuses for not coming out of our corner? You see, it does take courage, but we can make excuses, can't we? We can say, somebody else is better at it, it's somebody else's fault, I'll do it another day. Or you might have been saying, I'm going to wait for a sign from God. God will send signs, but sometimes we just know what we've got to do. We don't need to wait for a heap of signs from God to restore broken relationships. We know the Spirit tells us when something is wrong, and sometimes we've got to take that courage and come out of those corners where we're hiding, where we're trying to be a little bit inconspicuous, where we might be a bit afraid, and take those steps, and God will meet us more than halfway. And another character we can look at the Bible, there are so many, but I just want to quickly look at the lady who'd had bleeding for 12 years, and she came out of the crowds to touch Jesus' hem. And we find this character around about Matthew 9 verse 20, and having bled for 12 years, it's very likely she got no family, and she'd be ostracised from society because of the bleeding. And most people in those days, when they wanted to meet with Jesus, they would cry out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." But this woman creeps through the crowd. You see, she has took the courage to come out of her hiding place. And we know she's probably low down and a little bit scared because she's touching the hem of Jesus. And Jesus says to everybody around him, he says, "Somebody's touched me." And the disciples go, "Oh, come on, Lord, everybody's touching you. You're in a crowd." But he says, "No, there is something different about this woman who's touched me." And he calls to him. And obviously, it's all about restoration there, because he says, you know, your faith has healed you. He had to single her out because she was ostracised. And by singling her out, she was accepted again into society, because everybody there would know she had been healed and she could live that purpose-driven, that purpose life that God had called her to. But to do that purpose-driven life, she had got to come out of her corner. It was no good hiding any longer. She took those steps to come to God. Now, I don't know about you, but you might be feeling a little bit vulnerable, a little bit dirty today. And you might say, "Nick, you don't know what my life has been like. You don't know the things I've done." And all I can say is, you don't know the things that I've done, but there is nothing that you have done. There is nothing too dirty, nothing too shameful that you cannot come to God today for. He wants to restore that relationship. So if that is you, step forward out of the shadows, step forward out of your corner and take steps to come to Jesus. He wants you to have an abundant life. And maybe you feel a little bit like Peter in the Bible. Peter loved Jesus, didn't he? And he sold out to do everything he could for Jesus. And yet we find him in that situation where he had denied Jesus 3 times. And he's sitting in the square, and this servant woman comes up and she says to him, "Aren't you the one who loves Jesus? Aren't you the one who followed Jesus?" And Peter says, no, you've mistaken me. I'm somebody else. In other words, just leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I'm okay. I'm here to see what's happening to Jesus, but I don't want to talk to you. No, you are the one. You are the one who followed Jesus. Peter wanted to stay in that corner. And you might feel like you've messed up, that you've served the Lord for many, many years, but you've messed up big time. Jesus had a restorative plan for Peter, and we know at the end of the Bible they actually said, "Peter, you are the one on whom I want to build my church." He restored him. And God says to you today, it doesn't matter what you've done, if you feel you've messed up and you've been following me and you've gone your own way a little bit, come back to me. And you know when you've done that. I know when I've done it, because my prayer life goes out the window, my Bible reading goes out the window, and I sort of deny Jesus a little bit. But if that's you today, come back to Jesus, because he loves you as he loved Peter, and he wants to clothe you in his righteousness and just accept you back again. There's a lovely verse in the Bible, and it's Psalm 91 verse 1, and it says, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will remain secure and rest in the shadow of the Almighty." If you're feeling a little bit scared today, and you're feeling a little bit vulnerable and a little bit frightened, come out your corner and decide to abide in God. In other words, go all out for God, love him, worship him, serve him. And when you're scared, when you need your rest, when you feel a bit vulnerable, rest in his shadow. You don't have to run and hide in a corner. You can step out and have this full life with God and rest in him, because that is the best place to be. But you know, even if you find yourself in a corner today, Jesus is there with you. It says in the Bible, he will never leave us and never forsake us. And I just want to finish with Isaiah 28 verse 16. And it says, "Therefore, this says the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion a stone for a foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation." You know, Jesus is the cornerstone of our lives, and the cornerstone is the stone by which every angle and every trajectory of a building is taken from. In other words, it is the most important part of the building, is the cornerstone. If you find yourself up a corner today, know that Jesus is with you. You don't stand alone. He is the cornerstone, and in the cornerstone here is actually talking about what he built the church on, that Jesus is the cornerstone, but he is in your corner. We use that phrase, don't we? Who is in your corner? Who is fighting your corner? Well, Jesus is fighting your corner, but he calls you to walk out of the shadows and into his light today, to have that purpose-filled life that he so much wants you to have. But you know what? It's a choice. Nobody can do it for you. You've got to choose to come out. Nobody could bring that woman towards Jesus. She had to choose to do that. So I just want to finish in prayer, and I just would say, you know, whatever it is that you feel is holding you back, whether you feel that you've been disobedient, you feel ashamed, you feel naked, you feel vulnerable, you're just shy, you're scared, whether you're making excuses or whether you feel that somebody else could do the job better, like Gideon did, or why have you chosen me? I'm the least of the least, surely. Whatever reason you are using today, it is time to come forward and meet Jesus, because he's waiting for you, and you have got a purpose-driven life. You know, we're not going to be on lockdown forever. Make a decision that there's going to be changes. You know, it can start now. I know things are difficult on lockdown. You know, we would love to give you all a big hug and welcome you, but after lockdown, make some big life-changing decisions and decide to go all out for God, because he's so worth it. I just want to close in prayer. So Father God, I just thank you for your love, and whatever situation we find ourselves in, Lord, just help us, Lord, to examine what is keeping us in corners today. What are those things which are holding us back? And help us, Lord, to have those courage to take those steps towards you. We thank you that you love us and you are always for us. You're never against us. And we just praise your name, Lord, and we look forward to a glorious life with you. Thank you that we are forgiven and we can walk into the light today, Father. In and through your precious name. Amen.
Well, thanks, Nick. There's lots there for us to think about and to discuss now in our 30-minute group Zoom call. So if you are watching this on Sunday morning, then these are the details that you need to join us in just a couple of minutes' time. So, if you're wondering what are we going to be talking about on Zoom, well, we're going to have an honest discussion, perhaps about the times in our lives when we felt that we have been in the corner, perhaps even making excuses for not stepping out into the plan that God has for our lives. We're also going to share some practical steps that we took to move forward, and we'll encourage each other in that way. You know, we're going to ask, like Gideon, do we feel frightened, vulnerable or inadequate? Or like the woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years, are we hiding in shame? Shame that came from nothing that we have done ourselves. Or like Peter, do we just want to stay anonymous, denying our relationship with Jesus? Do you know, God is calling us to step forward and to step out, stepping out of our vulnerabilities, our shame and our hiding into his purpose-driven life. So let's meet together now on Zoom. We're going to pray for one another and we're going to encourage each other as well with practical things that we can do to take these steps forward together. So see you on Zoom, everyone. A couple of minutes time.